NC Pork. Good for the plate, great for the state.
Covering the bold North State. The players. The coaches. The legends. The fans. The most trusted sports journalist in North Carolina. This is the David Glenn Show on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Today, we're exploring one of the most impactful developments in modern college athletics. Name, image, and likeness is the concept, aka NIL, and the fundraising needed for a university to have a successful approach in this new college sports world. At NC State, one engine behind that effort is called OnePAC, an organization created in January of 2024, and leading that group is our guest, OnePAC Executive Director, Chris Vurnakes. Chris is a Durham native and a lifelong North Carolinian. He earned both his undergraduate degree and a master's degree in sport management from NC State. His career has included stops with the Durham Bulls, the Carolina Railhawks, Octagon, IMG College, and the Wolfpack ticket office. Right before OnePAC, he led the West Raleigh Baseball Association. He and his wife, Allison, live in Holly Springs with their daughters, Olivia and Ava. Chris, welcome to the David Glenn Show. How are you?
David, I'm so glad to be on, and I just realized I have to update my bio because I have a third daughter on the way, so I need to be ready to update that one.
All right.
Her name's Sophie, and we're expecting to see her in a month or two.
Congrats to you and Allison ahead of time. All right.
Thank you.
For those who may still be on a learning curve with NIL and collectives and associated things, what exactly is OnePAC and what is its core mission?
It's a great question, David, because it's confusing and has been for many years. And I love talking about it because I try to provide a little bit of clarity on what we do. So at NC State, the official NIL collective is OnePAC, and I'm proud to be the executive director of that organization. We have a staff of 4, and our goal is to raise funds and provide NIL opportunities for our student athletes. We do that in a number of different ways, including things like fan memberships, where our fans get access and experiences with our players. They get phone calls on their birthdays. They get meet and greets. They get autographs, all those things. And we have over 2,000 active members in our organization right now. We also have some really fun fundraising events. We had one recently at Angus Barn that Coach Wade actually referenced in a press conference after our home opener against Central, raised over $800,000 for our men's and women's basketball programs in one night, which is a big cornerstone of what we do year over year. We have major events for football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. And then third, and true, I think is how some people would put this, is we connect companies with our student athletes to do things like social media posts, digital ads, videos, radio spots, etc. I know we partnered successfully with Michael and his group to bring an NIL opportunity with Ven-Allen Lubin to be able to provide some media content for your listeners. So, it's those opportunities that we're able to then take back to our student athletes. And so many of those student athletes are using those NIL dollars to make ends meet, David. They're sending money back home to their guardians, to their parents, to their siblings. They're supporting their families. They're supporting their significant others. It's really life-changing things that we've been able to do. And we would not have been able to do it without the support of Wolfpack fans, the companies that we work with, the event promoters, et cetera. So we've been doing this for 3 years now. We've seen about 10 different iterations of NIL, including now the revenue sharing era that we live in currently. But our goal has remained the same, and that's to support our student athletes and provide these opportunities.
What have you seen are the false assumptions out there about NIL, where maybe you have to politely correct somebody who wants to help, but just doesn't yet understand how this stuff works?
I would say 2 things, David, and that's another really good topic because it is a common question. I think many people in the community think that student athletes are just going to the school that's offering the most money. And I always push back on that to say, have you ever accepted a job for more money? Yeah, you have. Have you decided to stay at a job even though you were offered jobs for more money? 100%. The best student athletes that have the best experience are choosing a school because there's a great coach, there's a great culture, we have a great city to live in like Raleigh, And then money is now a factor in that conversation. And I think when people understand that it's a factor, not the only factor, that helps them understand the process a little bit more. So that's number one to me. Number two is where the money goes. Everyone wants to know where the student athletes are spending their money, how they get all this money, where is it going? The average student athlete transaction we've had over 3 years is just over $1,000. So that is life-changing money. It's not millions of dollars. Most of these transactions are helping students pay their car payment or their lease on their apartment, or like I referenced earlier, send money back home to support those family members that are in need. That's where a lot of this money's going. And I'm not here to say that NC State or any school is perfect and that there is no money spent frivolously. But the reality of it is the money is going to student athletes and they're able to support their families and themselves in a way that they literally never have before. And I'm really proud of that.
Now that we have met the man who runs OnePack and we know why that organization exists, on the other side, we're going to dig into a little more about how it is actually built, the structure, the rules, and even how it connects to the Wolfpack Club and the university itself. That's next on the David Glenn Show.
Every great team has a winning playbook, and every great meal, it starts with North Carolina pork. Bacon for the early tip breakfast, pulled pork at the arena. That's how you win the day. Behind every bite, NC pig farmers fuel more than $10 billion in economic impact statewide. Great teams execute, great meals deliver. North Carolina pork. Game on, grill on. Learn more at ncpork.org.
Hey Wolfpack Nation, you already know that when we talk about the great traditions of NC State athletics, Amedio's Italian restaurant is right at the heart of it. Since 1963, it's been the go-to spot for generations of Pack fans. The walls tell the story, the food seals the deal, and every visit feels like part of the family. Whether it's pre-game pasta, post-game celebrations, or just a night out on Western Boulevard, Amedio's delivers every single time. Great people, great plates, and pure NC State pride. Stop by Amedio's, a true Wolfpack original.
Welcome back to the David Glenn Show. OnePack Executive Director Chris Vurnakes is our guest. When y'all announced the creation of OnePack under that name early last year, I saw the Wolfpack Athletic Director, Boo Corrigan, come out, and he basically said, I applaud this. We're getting NIL fundraising under one roof. But help us understand, you and your employees at OnePack, what is the best way to describe your independence from NC State or your working relationship with both the university and that athletic department?
Yeah, I think right now, David, the best way to describe it is we are a third-party partner of our athletics department, the Wolfpack Club, Wolfpack Sports Properties, et cetera. We're all playing in the same sandbox. And I think over 3 years, we've developed very clear lanes on what each organization is responsible for. And especially now in the revenue sharing era, as we've had to become truly an independent third-party organization focused on corporate deals or other direct NIL opportunities. That's the space that we've lived in. And we've done that, in my opinion, very successfully. In 3 years, I just did the math here because I'm coming up on 3 years in my role. We've raised over $30 million for NC State student athletes. It's a mind-blowing number. And what we're able to do that now is because of the collaboration and partnership with Boo Corrigan and the athletics department and our coaching staffs and Ben Broussard and the Wolfpack Club. If we didn't work together, our organization would not be as successful. And I'd also like to think that similarly, the Wolfpack Club and the athletics department simply wouldn't have seen the success that we've seen on the court and the field if we weren't all really working well together in the same space. So that partnership has to be incredibly strong. That is built on trust and communication, David. And I talk with my colleagues at the athletics department, my peers at the Wolfpack Club pretty much daily to make sure that we're communicating well with our student athletes, our coaches, our donors, our corporate sponsors, et cetera, because trust is very important. And we've really built ourselves on under-promising and over-delivering over 3 years, and I think that's positioned well.
You know the David Glenn Show well enough to know that we have a love and passion for college sports specifically. So our audience does have an idea, for example, that this is actually year one in the history of the NCAA of what is called internal revenue sharing, where NC State or other schools can pay up to 20 point something million dollars straight from the athletic department for the first time ever to the student athletes. Help us understand where the Wolfpack contributors come in and where does that money go, and then how you're supplementing that with name, image, likeness opportunities through OnePack.
Yeah, I think the most clear statement that's been made was when Boo Corrigan came out, I believe it was in August, and essentially said, using his words, we are all in on revenue sharing and 20.5 million. So how the athletics department raises that money is through the typical ways that they receive revenue, like multimedia contracts, TV contracts, stadium deals. You've seen that the school is actively trying to sell naming rights at Carter Finley Stadium. We're having more events at our venues than ever because we are trying to create more revenue internally to cover that 20.5 that you mentioned, David. Where our collective's able to come in now, where previously we've been really the primary payer for our student athletes and all of the NIL commitments that we've made to them directly. Now that the school is essentially responsible for 20.5 million, that is spread out amongst all of our programs, I'll add, which is really unique. And I think a great testament to what our athletic program is able to do. We as a collective are now really able to single out the student athletes that have significant NIL and brand value, the CJ Baileys, the Darion Williams, the Zoe Brooks, et cetera, to be able to bring them in where they're providing value for our collective and we can monetize them and we're able to compensate them for that. What that looks like for every student athlete is a little bit different. Some months or some activations might be for a corporate sponsor. Some might be an autograph signing. Some might be a digital video shoot. Some might be a fundraising event that we're attending, like we did at Angus Barn. But we're offering them those opportunities because they're bringing value to our organization. So, an NIL collective, I think when they first started 4 years ago, were just looked at kind of as money pits for people to throw money into and to get to student athletes as quickly as possible. We at OnePack and my company, Blueprint Sports and Entertainment, look at student athletes as a partner that we're able to raise money together. And that benefits both of our organizations. A large majority of those dollars end up with the student athletes for the activities we're asking them to do.
To the degree that you can, take us behind the curtain with a real world example. At NC State, just this year, Kevin Keats out as basketball coach in mid-March. Will Wade in as the new basketball coach just a couple weeks later. What role, if any, would your organization, OnePack, play in the midst of a transition where Boo Corrigan's trying to hire a coach, but things need to be paid for, right? So tell us how that stuff works behind the scenes.
Well, and first, I'd like to thank Coach Keats because we had some great memories, especially the 2024 run. But as he was transitioning out and as Will Wade's name became, prevalent in the media, we as a collective really had to make a commitment on what we thought we could bring to the table, because one of the first questions coaches are asking athletic directors now is, what is my NIL and revenue share budget? So our collective leadership really put pen to paper on what we thought we could do. And similarly to how I expressed this earlier, David, we underpromised and overdelivered. And I think Coach Wade even referenced that in his press conference when he joined NC State. He said, the NIL package and the revenue share package is bigger than I expected. But that does play a role when new coaches are being hired now. It's very significant. But we also anticipated some growth in our collective, bringing Coach Wade on. And quite honestly, I couldn't have anticipated what we saw. Our membership numbers almost doubled from March to April in 2025 as Coach Wade was hired. We just had a fundraising event at Angus Barn that I referenced that raised over $800,000 this year. Last year, that event raised over $400,000. $400,000 is a lot of money. We're really happy with that. We more than doubled what we raised at this year's version of that event with Coach Wade. So we know we're going to have to continually be creative and bring value to the people that are supporting us, whether it's our fan members, our donors, contributors, sponsors, et cetera. But we were able to capitalize on that moment in time and those couple of weeks where Coach Wade's name hit the media and then ultimately to the press conference in a way that we were able to bring more to the table. And I think the proof's in the pudding on how he and the staff were able to put together a roster with the support of the athletics department and the revenue share commitments they were able to make, in addition to what we were able to bring to the table from an NIL standpoint.
let's pretend that I, just as an example, have been a longtime Wolfpack booster, even before NIL became a thing. What are the messages to somebody like me? Does it include, hey, we're in a new world, and if you used to give X, DG, we need you to give totally a little bit more than X? And how does it work in terms of what should I give to the Wolfpack Club compared to what do I give to One Pack, compared to sometimes there are, scholarship specific or for facility specific donations that, all fit under this same umbrella?
Yeah, the need's never been higher and the asks have never been bigger, DG. So I think that's part of the challenge. And that has been a primary concern since I started with our collective, which was originally named Pack of Wolves in 2022, that we don't want to take away from what the Wolfpack Club's doing, because they need to raise millions of dollars as well for the scholarships, the facilities, and everything else that you mentioned. And now revenue sharing, 20.5 million. So what we've really been focused on, David, is the value that we provide people that give us money and what that means to them, because we're not just looking for contributions to build the next basketball or football team. We're looking for a core group of contributors and supporters that's going to get value out of what we provide, whether that's the experiences with the student athletes, the autographed merchandise, the meet and greets like Meet the Pack Day for our respective teams, or our corporate partners, being able to connect them with the CJ Bailey or an Olympic sports star that has 50,000 Instagram followers. That's value that we can provide to the people that are supporting us. That means they're not only going to do it this year, they're going to do it next year, and they might even do it bigger next year. So I think that's where we've always come to the table, David, to say, I have never told anyone, hey, you need to divert your Wolfpack Club giving to NIL because it's more important. They are both important. And I'll let someone's heart lead them on if they want to make a contribution to us. When we've done studies, more than half of our group supports both entities between the Wolfpack Club and One Pack. So I think the proof is in the pudding that, yes, they're being asked to pay more for tickets. They're being asked to donate more to the Wolfpack Club. But as we continually bring value, those experiences and that access is something that people are still willing to pay for, to a point where we're going to raise more money this year than we've ever raised. We have more members than we've ever had. We have more corporate partners than we've ever had. And I think the more we treat our collective like a value-driven business, we're going to just continually see that sustainable growth.
You mentioned your relatively small staff. I almost feel like you need a full-time compliance director, because whereas the United States Congress has not yet chimed in fully on, whatever the future of college sports is going to look like, you do have the IRS regulations that the athletes have to understand. You may have some North Carolina state law. You certainly have NCAA guidelines, which have changed pretty dramatically during your time doing this stuff. What are those biggest sort of compliance-related challenges right now?
The number one thing, David, is making sure our student athletes know their tax obligation. That is number one, full stop. You need to save at least X% of every NIL and revenue share check that you get, because Uncle Sam's going to get it eventually, and he'd rather get it before you get a penalty. So I'm proud to say we have some great accountants that are NC State grads that volunteer their time to lead our student athletes to do that. I'll also give credit to our athletics department, because they bring a lot of resources to our student athletes to make sure that we avoid some of the pitfalls that we've seen at other schools. And then again, that's not to say that NC State is perfect by any means, but if we can avoid a student athlete not understanding what their commitment is over time, that's a big life-changing thing that we can do. I think to talk more about the national and NCAA efforts, David, is we've been very adaptive, because to your point, the rules literally change every couple of weeks. The biggest thing we're dealing with from a collective standpoint is the College Sports Commission, CSC for short, and NIL Go. This is the Deloitte-driven third party that monitors every NIL deal that a student athlete signs. So we work very closely with our compliance department and my main contact, Maddie, within the athletics department, for every deal that goes to a student athlete from the collective that's over $600. That has to be entered through the portal of NIL Go, if you will. So that's a number of transactions that our student athlete have to self-report. They have to put the contract in, all the details. I have to sign off on it. And then it goes into the ecosphere, the cloud somewhere, for someone that we don't know to approve. And there hasn't been a whole lot of guidance about that, other than they're going to be really hard on collectives. So we've really had to regulate how we do deals with student athletes to make sure that those deals are approved. And as of this week, all of our deals have been approved. They've gone through the portal, the payments have been approved, et cetera. So we're continually living in this regulatory environment where we know what the penalties are, but we don't even necessarily know what the process is we need to be following. I guess we've just kind of gotten used to it over 3 years, David, the chaos, if you will.
This is a topic that still has a lot of moving parts. Up next, we're going to pull back the curtain on the process itself. How does a student athlete at NC State or anywhere else go from hearing an idea to actually signing a deal, and who makes all that happen? That's on the other side.
The perfect Wolfpack pregame or postgame spot this season is Sammy's Tap and Grill in West Raleigh. Just minutes from NC State, Sammy's brings more than 65 TVs, a huge menu, 44 draft beers, and an atmosphere built for Wolfpack fans. Burgers, jumbo wings, cold drafts, and all the energy of the pack. Whether you're watching the kickoff, tip-off, face-off, or just gathering with friends, that's where you want to be. Swing by 2235 Avent Ferry Road, Raleigh, and make Sammy's Tap and Grill your Wolfpack game day headquarters. Sammy's, presenting partner of the This Was Then podcast and complete coverage of the NC State Wolfpack on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Welcome back to the David Glenn Show. OnePack Executive Director Chris Vurnakes is our guest. Take us through the most important elements, A to Z, let's call it, of an NIL deal. How does a brand or donor approach you? And where's step one, and how long does it take typically before the ink is dry on a deal that gets done?
Yeah, I think if we look at ourselves as an agency, David, so we're actively talking to corporate partners, but also looking at what our fans are trying to get out of these experiences that they're paying for. We'll sit down at the table and kind of show them our menu of athletes, which is over 100 student athlete that we're actively working with, but we can work with any of them, which is the amazing thing about the portfolio of student athletes we can bring to the table. What we do is understand what the corporate partner is trying to get out of it, who they're trying to reach, how they're trying to reach them, what mediums they're trying to use. For example, we have a really successful partnership with Price Company, who owns a number of student housing apartment complexes at NC State. And I think we're on the verge of a very big deal with them to bring in multiple student athletes across multiple sports to promote their complexes to our students and also their families. So it's just connecting the dots in a really successful partnership where the company has needs, they have people they want to reach, they're looking at our student athletes as ambassadors or influencers, and they're able to include them in digital media, social media, they can include them in print, radio, et cetera. As we look at our student athletes like that ambassador, or I always use the example Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning's worked for how many companies over his years, and still is, by the way. Look at a student athlete in the way that you can use them as that face of your brand or that ambassador or influencer. And then so many of our student athletes have elevated social media followings because what they do on the field or the court, they're then speaking to a whole new audience for some of our partners. We'll then talk it out with the corporate partner, take the opportunity to the student athlete. A number of our student athletes have representation, whether that's an agent, a family member, a guide, or someone on the staff that's helping them understand these opportunities. And typically we have about a 90 to 100% hit rate that these things fall in and work out. We're able to schedule that around the team schedule, around their academic schedule. We'll do a video shoot, we'll do a photo shoot, we'll do a social media campaign. I would say the highlight for me was the DJ Burns kind of social media blast of 2024 when we won the ACC. And between the time we won the Sweet Six or the Elite Eight game to go to the Final Four, in that 5 days, I think DJ Burns was offered something like 40 NIL deals to the collective.
Wow.
That is the Super Bowl of what we do, if you will. But I think it speaks to exactly what you should be able to do, which is monetize his name, image, and likeness to promote organizations like TurboTax and Taco Bell, national brands whose agents were calling us trying to get deals set up. We take it to the student athlete and their representation. We have a pretty simple one-page term sheet that we work with to try and keep the legalese out of this, make it very simple for the student athletes to understand, the corporate sponsors to understand. We activate. Typically, the sponsor pays us, and then we pay the student athlete. And we have a compliant and sustainable way to do that, which in this day and age is not something to sneeze at.
I don't know if you have exact numbers on this and they change, but do you have a sense between those national brands that might want a Wolfpack athlete to represent them versus your example of the company that owns a bunch of local apartment complexes? Do you have a sense of national versus local? And do you have a separate question? How many of these decision makers have Wolfpack related backgrounds, whether it's as an alumni or as a fan?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, David, I would say most of our partners are locally and regionally based. And that just kind of breeds itself to be a little bit more connected with the NC States, the Dukes, the UNCs, et cetera. When we do have national prominence, you'll see it in things like the Final Four run for men's basketball and women's basketball that year. I believe Azaya and Sanaya both had TurboTax deals as well. So those are awesome opportunities. We've also seen some, for lack of a better term, Olympic sports superstars like Caitlin Tui get national deals from organizations because they hold significant brand value. They have very large social media followings. If you look across the country, the Livy Dunns and Angel Reeses are great examples of how national brands can connect with student athletes. We've had a few of those examples. I'd love to see more, but a lot of that just comes organically based on a student athlete's performance on the field and how notable they are nationally. Right now, we live in a world where most of our deals are with local and regional companies. And I would say it's a good split right now, David. And quite honestly, we've really worked hard internally to make sure that our corporate partnership portfolio is not just NC State supporters, that there are companies that are essentially sponsoring our collective or sponsoring our student athletes because they are bringing significant brand value to their brand. And I'll go back to the Price Company example. We were able to connect the dots with one of our swimmers who, Cassie Moses, has over 50,000 followers on Instagram. She has another 10 or 15,000 on TikTok. And we were able to bring her as a solution to promote to our students at NC State for these apartment complexes. And now I think we're looking at a deal with them that's going to be 8 to 10 times larger because that opportunity showed value and brought new customers to that organization. So just like any business, if you spend money on marketing, you want to see an ROI, and we're in the business of connecting the dots on which student athletes make the most sense to prove that ROI. And that might be based on what sport they play, male versus female, when their season is, where they're from, their hometown, and obviously the notoriety that they get as a student athlete. So I'm just proud to say in 3 years, I think we've worked with over 300 student athletes at NC State. We've provided them with over $30 million in NIL opportunities that they've capitalized on, and it's literally been life-changing.
You mentioned that amazing stretch in March of 2024 where you go from 1,000 plus to 2,000 plus one-pack members, if that's the right term. Give us a sense. I have seen you have a drive for 5, and if you get to 5,000, like, would 5,000 put this NC State organization one-pack, leading the pack? What is the current Wolfpack place in that broader universe where, there's 68 Power 4 schools trying to do some version of what you're doing?
What's interesting, David, and I'm sure every collective now is so different in how we organize and fundraise, quite honestly. And I read an article about Duke's Collective and men's basketball is kind of driven by a very small group of very high network donors, and they work with that program in a way that's very unique to what we do. We're NC State. We're going to be blue collar. We're going to be in this all together. And where we got to with the 5,000, quite honestly, is we feel like if we can get to 5,000 members over time, that will be a 100% sustainable model for our collective. We're at 2,000 and change right now, which is well on our way. We have a long way to go still, but there are hundreds of thousands of NC State fans out there that we need to tap into. Our average member gives about $60 a month, David. So that is a significant amount of money, but it also is within reason for most people who pull for NC State, because you're probably paying that for parking at Lenovo Center these days, quite honestly. Yeah. But the reality of it is we feel like if we can get to around 5,000 members actively, that will sustain our collective in a way that we won't have to fill any gaps. That will fill our bucket, if you will. And then we'll only be able to add on to that and be supplementary based on our corporate sponsorships, events, et cetera. But right now, the fan membership is kind of the lifeblood of what we do. And every collective's different. The company that I work for manages a handful of other collectives. Penn State University, for example, is one of the collectives that Blueprint Sports and Entertainment manages, and fan memberships just haven't been a huge part of what they do to date. And that just is what it is. But we found a lot of success with it, and I give credit to Steve Williams, who's our membership manager and has been in the NC State ecosphere for decades, quite honestly. He knows what our fans are looking for. He knows the value that they're looking for, and he's constantly planning events, sweepstakes, raffles, ticket giveaways, merchandise, etc., that bring value to those 2,000 people that, again, on average are giving us $65 a month.
For folks who want to look into Chris's world and maybe donate to his organization, become a member, the website is onepacknil.com, ONEPACKNIL.com. There are all sorts of giving levels, larger and smaller, if you want to become a part of that subset of Wolfpack Nation. Chris, thanks so much for the time. I love the broad overview as well as the Wolfpack specifics. It's great to see you, somebody I've known for quite a while in this relatively new capacity. But thanks for painting that broad picture for us and educating our audience about how this stuff works in the brand new world of college athletics.
David, I appreciate the time. I'd rather people hear it from someone who knows what they're talking about than some people who don't and like to think that they do. So I appreciate you.
Amen. Right back at you. As we let Chris go, some closing thoughts from me. Special thanks to Chris Vurnakes, Executive Director of OnePack, for dropping by the show today, offering his insights on really what is one of the biggest topics in all of college sports. Again, that website, onepacknil.com. We do have a quick announcement on today's show as we offer our thanks to you, our viewers and listeners all across North Carolina and beyond as we say goodbye until next time. The North Carolina Sports Network is proud to announce something that Chris made a quick mention of a little bit earlier, the premiere of our brand new NIL-themed show. It's called COURTVISION, hosted by NC State basketball star Ven-Allen and our own North Carolina Sports Network co-founder Mike Waddell, who was a longtime Division I athletics director. COURTVISION marks a first in North Carolina history. It's our first ever media to athlete NIL partnership. The mission of the show COURTVISION is simple: to bring you authentic conversations, fresh perspectives, and powerful stories that you will not find anywhere else. Each week, Ven-Allen and Mike Waddell sit down together to break down life on and off the court, from the locker room to leadership, from NIL realities to what it really means to represent the Wolfpack, which, remember, is Ven-Allen's fourth school in 4 years in this transfer portal world. There will be 20 episodes of COURTVISION, roughly reflecting the length of the 2025-26 college basketball season, and those episodes will all be created right here in the bold North State. Don't miss the COURTVISION premiere. It'll be streaming on ncsportsnetwork.com, our website, and across YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram. Our handle there, remember, is the NC Sports Net. That's at the NC Sports Net. The new show, again, is called COURTVISION, where an athlete and an athletic director see the game from every angle and share those views with you. As we thank you for joining us today on the North Carolina Sports Network, on the David Glenn Show, we do have one no-cost-to-you request. Please like, subscribe, and follow our YouTube channel and our social media handles from wherever you're listening or watching. Thanks to many of you and thousands of others across the bold North State and beyond, our subscriber number on YouTube now ranks in the top 2% in the world. We've added more than 50,000 folks just in the last 2 years who clicked that subscribe button. And again, it is free. You can always find more stories, videos, and features at our website, ncsportsnetwork.com. And of course, we are all over social media, YouTube, X/Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And sometimes, most importantly, we do want to hear from you. You can DM or email us your thoughts, your questions, your ideas about any of our shows, what you love, what you want more of. We do read all of your feedback. Thanks again for joining us today on The David Glenn Show, now seen and heard exclusively right here on the North Carolina Sports Network.
This is the North Carolina Sports Network. From the high country to the Outer Banks, on courts, fields, and fairways, we tell the stories of the bold North State. Follow us on social media at the NC Sports Net. We're the exclusive home of The David Glenn Show, coach-driven analysis of football and basketball. A look at the past with This Was Then, Inside NIL with COURTVISION, the North Carolina Sports Awards, aka the Pineys, and the Old North State Tailgate, where we are on the ground at North Carolina's top events. Our foundational partner is NC Pork, raising the bacon, raising the bar. Telling the stories of the bold North State. Experience matters. This is NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network.